Good, hello, good, okay. Okay, okay. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon, Professor.
Thank you. Awesome. Good afternoon to you, Juanita. Thank you. Okay, awesome. And good afternoon, David. And good afternoon, Noelia. Good afternoon, Zitlali. Good afternoon, Shankia. Good afternoon, Tomika. Good afternoon, Michelle. Good afternoon, Molly and Molly's iPhone. Good afternoon, Kirsty. Good afternoon, Jacob. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Noelia. Wow, you guys are fast. It's man. Good afternoon, Hoyin. Good afternoon, Naromi and Edie. Right. I finally now understand. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yes, I'm going to address. Yes, good. If you got an email from me, good. We're going to address that in a minute. Please just don't throw it out. I will definitely explain it. Give me 2 seconds. In fact, I'm glad to see you all. I know we're down to the count now. We're down in the count. Please give me. But good afternoon, good afternoon, Leonie. Oh, and who did I miss actually? Good afternoon, Vince, if I didn't say. Good afternoon, Antonio, if I didn't say. Thank you, Vince. All right, everybody, hang on bear with me for a second. Today's definitely a teaching day. I mean, every day is a. Oh, and hey, Antonio, right. Okay, bear with me for a second. I'm going to clarify I'm hoping to clarify like everything in the universe today. Okay. We are. Okay. Oh, someone else is here. Yeah, bear with me. Okay. Please bear with me for. Okay, 1 sec. No, sorry. Bear with me for one more sec. Okay, this is worth waiting for. I think. Okay. Bear with me. I'm sorry. As I say, I do think this is going to be worth it. And I was hoping it'd be done before we started, but and someone is here. Oh, okay. This should work. This should work. This should work, yes. Okay. Okay. You should see in a moment, all of you should see in a moment a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet thing that hopefully has no names in it. And let me know. Okay, so if someone could let me know. Oh, chat. Oh, hi. Hello. Good to see you. Let me know if and when you see in your Google Classroom stream, you should see a spreadsheet that has a bunch of grading information in it. And it, so first of all, can someone confirm, do you see that? Is it there? A bunch of numbers, a huge bunch of numbers? Yes.
What?
Yes. Okay, great. Now, also, before we go any further, this is really risky. There are not names in it, correct? Like you don't see names in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are
Professor,
no
I
names.
don't know what she's talking about. I don't see what you're talking about.
Oh, wait. Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Wait. Okay. Well, if you, I guess it would be sent to your email address that you use for, okay, thank you, direct message person, thank you. So wherever usually you get like assignments and stuff from me through Google Classroom, like the email address you use in Google Classroom, you should, what should have just come to you is a piece of Google Classroom material called Grade Estimator, and it's a spreadsheet. It seems like a lot. So Edie, you don't see that?
Professor, no, I didn't get that email. I just got an email in regards, one second, I'll tell you right now. I got an email in regards to a row number.
Oh, yes. Okay. That's really important. And that's what this is about. Okay. Okay. Hold on to that. Don't go the way. I'm about to explain that. Oh, and I'm not sure why you didn't get this yet. But by the way, those of you who did get what I'm talking about, and clearly it's not all of you yet, but those,
Yeah.
but I do see, I'm looking at now what it comes, it has two tabs, like it's supposedly a spreadsheet, but it does have two tabs at the bottom, and it's open to a weird tab that doesn't look like it has any numbers. Like it's
Oh,
open.
I see it now.
Oh, okay,
It is
great.
Yeah, I don't have no numbers.
Right. Okay. But now I realize that's kind of a mistake, kind of not. But if you go over to the net, there's another tab, like it's open right now to a tab that at the bottom left says form responses 1. It's like a purple, it looks like a Google's form tab. But right next to that is a tab that says sheet 0. I mean, I didn't realize this was going to happen, but if you click on that tab, you'll see a whole.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And there's still no names, correct? Like you still don't see any names in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, you don't see no names. You see
Okay.
numbers though now.
Okay, great. So and most people are seeing what I'm talking about, or I mean, a lot of people are seeing this thing that just came. Oh, I'll look in the chat. Hold on, sorry. Yeah, the spreadsheet, right. It's in the classroom stream, right. Thank you. And yes, you're seeing it. Great. Okay, so here's the deal. This is a little risky, maybe, but I'm hoping it's to the benefit of everybody, again, to reduce stress and to wrap up the semester. The deal is this. This is a grade estimator. This is not a promise of your grade. Of course, we still have a final exam and we still have your lab grade, blah, blah. You know, basically, there's still a chance to improve your grade. There's a big chance for all of you to still make your grade better. But the reason I sent you each a private email with the row, so this is everybody's grades, but it's randomized. Like the row, I promise you, the rows are randomized. They're not in alphabetical order. They're not in order of the grades. You can tell that. They're not in any order. But each one of you has a row, like that's why. So I sent you each a private email saying your row number, whatever. Okay. That row that I sent you is you in that. Again, this is a little bit dicey that I'm doing this, maybe, but I think everybody will benefit from this. So that sheet, and if you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see your final average right now, numerical average, like all the way to the right, you'll see something called, all the final average with like 3 stars or 4 in it. Okay. And that right now that's assuming certain things. I'm going to explain this. I definitely don't want to spend 2.5 hours on this. I'm kind of doing this to save us time, but it is a spreadsheet, so it's got formulas in it, so you can enter in data as you get, like basically right now the final column is the grade that you would get right now if nothing else happened, if I didn't do anything else, because everything is graded as far as except for one thing, the assignment that was due. Okay, I'm all over the place already. The very last homework assignment is not graded yet. We're going to talk about that. So that's left out. Of course, no one got a 0 or anything, but just that number is not there. That's still a lot of points that a lot of people could get and could still add to your average, but that's just blank right now. Also, the final exam is blank right now. We're going to talk about both those things today. Also, what's in there right now is a totally conservative, I think conservative, like underestimate. You'll see there's a column all the way toward the end. Wait. Yes, and so I'm going to address Molly's good question. I'm going to try to address all this. I'm going to try not to spend 2.5 hours on this, but I mean, the quick answer is yes, as long as they're honest. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. But anyway, just to give you all the big picture, okay? Right now, there's no final exam in there. Any homeworks that you haven't done or whatever, of course, are not in there. No one ever got a 0 for it, unless you literally didn't take the midterm exam. And I guess there is a couple people of that. But other than the midterm exam, if you literally skip that, then you got a 0 for that, at least for right now. But other than that, there's no zeros. There's just like blank cells if you didn't do a certain thing, and they do not count as zeros or anything like that. Right now, you'll see that there. So if you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see how I do grades. So the main purpose of this is not to scare anybody. It's actually hopefully to calm some people down, but it's also to show you exactly how I do grades so that you can also do it on your own, or you can use the spreadsheet to do it. Wait, someone just entered. I'm sorry. Hang on one second. Okay. The deal, and it's all, so the deal is this: if you all of the columns, like starting at the left, like almost all the way to the end, all of those are various homeworks, right? Game homeworks, regular homeworks, all of them are just worth points, different amount of points, right? They all just get added up. You'll see there's a column somewhere where there's a column. Let me go back to it. Sorry. Things are happening everywhere. Okay. Get lost. Yeah. If you scroll all the way to the right to column AH, you'll see. And hopefully, and don't throw away that email where I told you your row. And obviously don't tell it to other people unless you want to, but your row is your row here. Again, they're randomized. It's based on nothing. It's just everybody has, I just took the names out. So if you find your row number and you go to AH, column AH, that's the total number of points that you've gotten so far for everything that you've turned it, game things, regular homework things, whatever. That's the total amount of points. You'll even see at the top that the average number of total points that came in is 1,374. Like whatever that is, right? That's just a crazy number, but that's what it is. Then you'll see a column next to it that says scaled homework credit. What that is basically the column to the left of it divided by 200. Like literally this year right now, like the scaling factor is 200. So I take your total number of points, whatever they are, I divide by 200, and then I get this number in AI, which is your scaled homework credit. That's literally the number of points that's being added to your exam average to make your final average. And what's your exam average? Well, then you'll see right next. And again, I'm saying this so it can be super clear. So there's still a chance for you to fix stuff, whatever. And also so that there's no surprises or chaos Wednesday night or Saturday night or next Monday night. So, and believe me, again, I'm telling you all this right now. The main point of all of this is so that anybody who still wants to improve their grade can. And really, and almost nobody's grade is going to get worse, especially if you're sitting here listening to me right now. Like I pretty much almost promise that, unless you do something really dramatic, your grade's not going to get worse. So what you can assume that this thing is the lowest possible grade you're going to end up with, or the grade you'd end up with right now if you stopped working in the next 2 days. So, but anyway, AH is the total number of points you've accumulated. Yes, you can still turn some things in and get some points for that. I want to be a little bit more clear about that in a moment, but like, yes, you can. Then says AI, which is, I divided that number by 200. I divided it for everybody by 200. Believe me, I could explain for 1,000 years how I came up with the number 200, but it's not really interesting. It just means that on average, if you look at the top, on average, the average person here is getting 7 points added, or almost like 6.87 points added to whatever their exam average is to make their final grade. And as you all know, like 7 is the difference between, for example, an 87 and a 94. It's like the difference between a B plus and an A, or whatever, right? So it's like, it's real. Then after that comes the midterm exam. All the scores were in there. I mean, obviously I did all this because now, and I apologize it took me so long, but everybody got a midterm back. There's still time. If there's an issue or something, I will address personal issues today or tomorrow. Like if I made a mistake on yours, it's possible. I'll hear about it. But, you know, for the moment, just assume that that is your grade that you got on the midterm exam. And you'll see the average was a 66 or 66.8. You know, I don't know what that tells you. It certainly should tell you, though, that if you got like a 72, it means you got above the average. So don't like be upset or whatever. And yeah, if you got lower than the 60s, you got lower than I don't know what it tells you, but it's the average. Then next to that, now here's important. I know I've said this before, but I'm trying to, again, I just want this to be completely transparent and completely clear. Like what happens is you took your midterm, then you're going to get a final number from Professor Wu, or honestly, I'm going to get a final number from Professor Wu, like at some point this weekend before all the grades are due. That final number that I get from Professor Wu is the sum total average of all your lab reports, all that stuff. I'm sure he doesn't have them ready yet. I wouldn't ask him, you know, you won't speed him up by asking him, but you'll get a grade from Professor Wu that usually, honestly, I mean, very few people usually get lower than, it's hard. If you did all the work, well, you'll know, I mean, you know what you got back on your reports and stuff, but if you did all the work, most likely you ended up with something higher than an 80. But I just estimated here 80 just to be conservative, like kind of to assume worst case scenario for most people that actually did the work. So I just put the number 80 in here as an estimator. But again, this is a spreadsheet. The minute you know what your number is, or if you have a good guess or whatever, you can change the number in like on your personal document. That's why I sent this to each one of you. You know, on your personal row, you can change the number and all the formulas will adjust accordingly. That's true for all of this. Like you can change whatever number and see what impact it will have. And I'm sure I'm not the only professor that does this, but the point is how I'm going to make your final grade is I'm going to take in principle, I take the midterm, your lab average, and your final exam, which is right now blank, as you could see. Those 3 columns get averaged together in column AM to make your exam average, right? Right now, you'll notice the final exam is blank. It's not counting as a 0. It's just like literally not counting in there. So right now, whatever you're seeing in exam average is just the average of your midterm and this 80 that I made up for bookkeeping purposes as your lab average, just to remind you that your lab average totally counts in this whole thing. Again, you can tweak that as you see fit. But so you get this exam average that technically is the average of your midterm, your final, and your lab grade. Then to that, we add column AI. And again, these are formulas. Like if, you know, some of you are better at Excel than others, but, or whatever this is called, Google Sheets, but you know, you can go in and see the formulas. It's not meant to be secret or black magic or anything like that. But the point is that we, but I don't want to explain this a million times, and it is in the syllabus. But if you have any concerns, please rewatch this video. What I'm trying to say is you take AJ, AK, and AL, those 3 numbers, you average them together, and then you add the number from AI, which is your scale homework credit. Okay, you know, which is very high in some people's cases and lower in other people's cases. That gives you your final average. The final average right now, so like, you know, and the final average right now is an 80.28, which is like, I would consider a B minus. I mean, we all consider a B minus. And then you'll see numbers under that, like 82, 75, whatever. Underneath this whole thing, there are random looking numbers in the very last row, row 35. Those are standard deviations. Again, I know some of you feel more comfortable with the concept of standard deviation than others, but standard deviation is literally the average distance from the average. It shows how much these grades varied. So in other words, if the standard deviation under final average, so the final average right now is an 80. That means like the average person in this class is getting like a B minus. That means the grades are centered around a B minus, which is actually appropriate and normal. I mean, it's like a little higher. There's, some people think C should be average. I don't think that, but obviously some people are getting lower than B minuses right now. A lot of people are getting higher. There's like at least 10 numbers in there. There's at least 8 or 9 numbers in there if you scroll through that are A's right now. I'm not trying, again, I don't care who the people are and you shouldn't either. I'm just trying to say already we have 8 A's and they're not going down. Like none of these numbers really should go down. The reason I'm talking all this time about this is partly because you've been a great class and I really do want to end this. And some of you suffered under my disorganization last semester. So I really want to be as super organized about this with everybody as possible. And my goal again is to spend these next 2 days. Once I start talking about physics, I'm going to race through a lot of physics. I want to finish a lot of physics with you guys. You've been paying attention. I think you are learning things. I want to close the physics story over the next 2 days. But I also want the next 2 days to be an opportunity for anybody and everybody who could still move up their grade to do so. It's not an opportunity to tank or to give up. It's an opportunity to lift your grade. Right now, your grade is whatever it says in that very last column for your row. If nothing else were to happen. If nothing else were to happen, and if it were correct that you were getting an 80 in lab, honestly, a lot of you are probably getting higher than an 80 in lab. That is generally what happens. There aren't usually very many big negative surprises in labs. The bad grades in labs are if people didn't do their lab reports and stuff, and they usually know who they are. But I can't promise anything. And again, you can just, okay, so this is not a promise of anything. It is a promise of my system. And it is a promise that all these numbers are in right now. All this information is recorded right now. Hopefully, because of Google Classroom, you and I have the same concept of what numbers we're working with. These are how the numbers get computed. Wait, there's one other. I know there will be quite. You can still hand in homeworks over the next 2 days. For some of you, it might benefit you a lot more just to focus on the final. Frankly, like you can see how the numbers work here. You make the call. Again, no one's ever going to get a 0 for something they haven't handed in besides an exam. It's just if you're looking, you can do the math. You can see if it's worth doing something for more points or not. You could just change the numbers in the sheets and see, how your grade gets affected. Is it possible that I would still add 1 point extra in certain cases for like good class participation if they were on the borderline? Yes, according to the syllabus, I still have that right. I would never take away a point from anybody. But it does say in the syllabus, even though we have all these participation games, if someone participated a lot, I have the right to give them 1 point for that. Honestly, what I usually use that for is anybody who's right on a grade borderline and I feel like they've been responsible at all. Like even if they've been super quiet, if someone's been responsible and competent and they're right on a grade borderline, I'm not promising this and I'm not obligated to do this, but I will often throw 1 point technically for class participation to push them over the borderline and so that could still happen. So again, this is an estimation. This is a minimum projection. It's also to alert any of you who do, if your grade is of concern, then I think you really do want to focus on the final. I'm going to get to that in a second. But yes, you can still hand in homeworks. You can still turn in game things too. For sure, you can turn in the special game ones like from yesterday, or for like, if you ever showed video and you haven't like turned that in, or you ever subscribed to the YouTube channel, which you could still do, you could turn that in. Now, all game turns like, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, like the game turns from like 4 weeks ago. I'm a little skeptical about that. Like the last couple of days, sure, because everybody's been busy and you're scrambling, you could still turn in some game turns from the last few days, especially if they're different. Like if you said something 2 days ago and you forgot to turn it in, but you actually said something 2 days ago, sure, turn it in. And I'm saying this with all due respect, what I don't want, and I won't take, I don't want some like photocopied thing for all the last 15 days that just says like, I said hello, here you go. And then you just like, and again, I'm saying this with respect, but don't now retro turn in a piece of paper that says I said hello 15 times. Because part of the point of the game turn thing is a moment of self-reflection every night. It's like a moment to check in with yourself, how you're doing with the class, and a moment to check in with me. And if you retro all of those now, it kind of defeats the purpose and it's kind of inauthentic. So I ask you to use your judgment and be as honest as possible. And I'm going to use my judgment, but I'll certainly look at them. You could certainly still turn in things, anything you could find that's authentic, or you can show that you learned something and did something to get more points. Sure, you could still turn it in on that also. And I will answer questions. Again, I know this is super boring, but I think it's like more what everybody wants to know than anything else. On the very last homework 5, which you were all working on yesterday assiduously, thank you. Okay, so I realized I totally screwed up that homework. I've given you, you can still totally turn that in. I extended the deadline again. I think I extended it to tomorrow night, to tomorrow 1:15, because I have to, and it is still worth a lot of points if you want them. You could still ignore it, but it's worth a lot of points and you could still turn in, because honestly, I did accidentally, the second part only asked for a diagram. Someone asked me this in the chat yesterday. I didn't really know what they were talking about. The Xerox got messed up and all I asked for was a diagram. That's important, but not that hard or that big of a deal. I accidentally left off the main question where you actually have to do an involved computation. The whole thing is not worth, the reason it's worth 900 points is because there is a computation that I would like you to do it. So if you've already turned it in and also there was a confusing error. I gave you 2 contradictory pieces of information about the coordinates. So if you've already done it, again, as usual, I've noticed that you turned it in early. I applaud you. You probably already, got a lot of the points. And thank you for being so early. But to get all the points, I re-uploaded, I corrected it. Definitely no one will be late with this thing. Again, for some of you, it might be a judgment call, whether it's more worth working on that or working on the final. I mean, you can do, that technically is due tomorrow and the final won't be posted tomorrow. So, technically it's not a conflict, but you still definitely, everybody could still definitely turn that thing in. And again, it's our most recent material. It's our most recent material, so it's worth a lot of points. And if you really think this through, if everything gets divided by 200, if that thing is worth 900 points, then technically that means if you literally got all of it exactly correct, that would technically be 4.5 points on your average right there, which is sort of hard even for me to believe, but apparently that's what my math means. So, that might be worth doing. I'm going to talk about the final in a second, but yes, you could still turn in things. What I really want to say to everybody again is nothing on that sheet is a hard, fast promise, but it is a good way to estimate a very good way to estimate your grade. And I am pretty much promising that unless you do something dramatic, your grade should not go down from there. In fact, I can go a little bit of a step further. I said this yesterday. I still have to figure out exactly how I'm going to do this, but I could tell you that we're going to talk about the final in a second too. I'm going to show you the final in a second, or at least what I have of it so far. And then once we get all this out of the way, then I'm going to tell you this right now too. Once we get all this stuff out of the way, as important as it is, then I'm just going to motor through physics for the rest of today and all of tomorrow. All I'm going to do is talk physics, and you'll have the final in advance to try to listen to me and try to get the final right based on what I'm doing. But I really, especially some of you have been waiting to hear certain things, took this course for a certain reason, and I want you to hear the things that you're here to hear, blah, blah, blah. So those of you who are worried about your grade, you'll definitely want to listen and you'll want to take the final seriously. And like I said yesterday, I will probably, for those of you who are, I will probably wait. I haven't, it's not in the columns yet. I haven't made a formula for this, but one way or another, I'm going to weight whichever one you do better on more. So those of you who are in a little bit of trouble right now, take the final really seriously and the final will count more to your advantage. Those of you who already have an A or already have a grade that you're happy and satisfied with, I can tell you, as of right now, I still want you to take the final because I want to close this whole operation cleanly. But if you're already satisfied with your grade, I can tell you, you'll have to then don't kill yourself on the final. Honestly, I want you to super pay attention for the next 2 days and hear as much physics as you can. But if you're already happy with your grade, I want you to start breathing out now and realize that unless you really do something rude in your final, or you literally put pipe bombs in my mother's mailbox or something, your grade's not going to go down. If it looks like 9 people in the class already have A's, I think that they should, I don't think anybody else should be, I don't think they should be jerks. And I think they should be nice to everybody else, whoever they are. And I think other people should like now work, but I think they should start breathing and realizing they're going to get an A. And there's not too much that's going to unwind that. And if you have a B, same thing. If you're just looking for a B and you have a B already, don't kill your, like, I want you to pay attention, but don't have, you know, do it with intensity rather than stress from here on in. And I'm not saying this to criticize anybody, but mainly the purpose of the final and the last bits of work that anybody should worry about are for anybody who's not happy with their grade right now. This is the opportunity to fix that. And like I said, I'm going to say one more time, if your final is better, if you do better on the final than you did on the midterm, I will probably give it more weight, like, because I want you to save yourself. Okay. And then I'm saying all this because then in the end of the day, when you do get your grades, when I do post the grades, hopefully there aren't going to be major surprises. And, you know, hopefully you'll be seeing something that you pretty much already expected. And then we'll all go away from each other peacefully. Okay. All right. I'm going to pause for a second. Okay. So now, wait. Okay, wait, so, okay, I'm pausing now to look at the chat. Hold on a second. Okay, actually, I'm scrolling back up. Okay, I'm going to start with the chat. And wait, what time is it? 1:45. Okay, can you still turn in things that have been passed already? Molly's question, everybody, I believe I've answered that. And all of you, please do let me know if I answer. Like if you ask the question and once I answer it, do let me know in the private chat or public if I did answer it. Okay, then no problem for being late. I think actually, but thank you. And I think you even warned me that you were going to be late. Oh yeah. Okay, in the direct chat, it says, is it possible to get an A if your average is an 80 right now? That's a totally fair question. And here's the deal, and any questions like that, very fair. The reality of it is, one of the reasons I'm giving you all this sheet, it does have the formulas in it. So the most honest thing I can actually say is you can find out better than I can tell you by just entering numbers into the sheet and playing around. Like literally, it will adjust unless I'm wrong. The numbers will adjust if you change. So for example, remember all of you, like if you think you have an 80 right now, that is assuming you're getting an 80 in lab. So first of all, you're probably not. So you might want to see what happens if you put in 85 for lab, right? That each of you personally, you could do it now, do it later, whatever. But then second of all, literally just put in numbers in the final exam and like put in 99 in the final exam and see what happens to your grade. Like, unless I'm mistaken, they should adjust right then and there. And, you know, this is the point at which, or at a certain point, this is just pure math, right? You don't like, at a certain point, the grades are objective and fair in that sense. Like, you don't want me getting too personal. So my instinctive answer is yes, I think it is possible, especially because I am even saying that I will weight the final more, but that's not like this. So this spreadsheet again is an estimator, but it's a conservative estimator. This is like the estimation of the lowest scenario that's going to happen. Like, I'm probably going to weight your final more if you do better on the final, but you can't see that in here. So, but what you certainly can see is if you put in 99 for the final and change your lab grade to an 85, see, and then put in 800 points for homework 5, or, you know, anything else that you know you're still going to hand in to me, and see what happens to your final grade. And I'll tell you right now, if you're so I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to like dodge, but as far as how numbers translate to letters, which I think is partly what people are asking actually. So letters and numbers, I do like all of this whole system is my system. I do feel like it's as generous and compassionate and human as it can be. But in the end of the day, there's a CUNY system, which is how numbers translate to letters. And I do follow that. I have no choice but to follow that. And so two things about, so for example, if you have in the end, if your final average is a 90, is literally a 90, okay, that's an A- in CUNY. And that I don't have any freedom about. I'm not sure I want any freedom about that. If your final number in that following column is a 90, that's an A-. The way the grades work, and this is in the syllabus too, it's like on the front page. This is true for every class as far as I know. Like 87, like 87 through 92 technically is all a B. No, I'm sorry. Let me say this again. I mean, this is all on a sheet in the syllabus and it's true of every class, but like, and I don't differ from this. Like 87 through 89, those are all B+. 87, 88, 89, that's all B+. 90, 91, 92, that's all A-. 93, 94, blah, 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 that's A. At John Jay, and I know this is not true, I know Hunter is different and some schools are different. Oh, and some of you are coming from other schools, so you don't know that, right? Okay, but it is all on the front page of the syllabus. I'll work backwards. Like there's no A+ at John Jay. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it's just literally true. We just literally, I couldn't give it, if I gave you an A+, there's not even an option in CUNY first. I could not give you an A+ if I wanted to, or I could not record an A+ for you if I wanted to. So 100 is an A, 99 is an A, 98 is an A, 97 is an A, 96 is an A, 94 is an A, 93. Then 92, 91, 90 is A-. 89, 88, 87 is B+, 86, 85, 84, 83 is B, 82. I know I'm saying this fast, but this you've got to look up or whatever if you're fuzzy on this, because this is just policy across the board. 82, 81, 80, that's all B-. 79, 78, 77, that's all C+, etc. down the line. Here's where my deal comes in. If your final number in that final column, if your final number is right on the borderline, like it's a 92, but you've been a solid student, like I know who you are, like not like you've been amazing, but like you've been solid and you've been here and I know who you are and you do homework. If you have a 92, or especially if you have like 92.3 or something, I will most likely give you 1 point for class participation, then you'll have a 93 and you'll have an A. I do that. If you are, where I am generous or whatever, is if you're on the borderline, especially if like you've decimals out. I mean, and most professors, well, a lot of professors don't do this. They'll be like 92.4, that's an A-, see you later. No, I don't do that. If you're right on the borderline and you've been a good person, I'll give you 1 point and push you over that borderline, but that's the most I can do. By the time we get to the end of the spreadsheet, that's the most I can do. So if you have, so you got to just play with the numbers at this point. That's kind of why I'm doing this today on like the second to last day of class. Like you just put in the numbers for what might happen on the final, what might happen on your homework 5, what might happen in lab. See what your final number is. Again, I'm telling you, your final grade might be better than that. It might be, but you know, but if the highest you can get it to at this point, if you put in 99 for the final exam and you put in a 99 for your lab average and the highest that your grade, and you put in a 900 for the homework number 5, if your final average turns out to be 73, well, that, yeah, I mean, I think that does mean you're getting a C. And you can maybe text me on the side or C, or if there's any confusion, but like, you know, yeah, there is at a certain point just a numerical reality to this. Again, that's why I'm trying to show it to you all now, you know, rather than you find out through CUNY first next week or something like that. Sorry, I'm getting all. As far as extra credit, so this question has come up a lot. If you look at the way, and I hate to sound frustrated about this, but I'm really trying to give everybody every possible chance that I can, that's fair, that's imaginable. All of the different homeworks are points. There's various ways you can show participation that don't have to be talking. Like you can show that you looked at a YouTube video. If you haven't done that yet, if you want to subscribe to the channel, that's point. If you like, there are all these ways that I try to reward people for any way that they engage in the class. But at a certain point, there's only so much I can do. Like I can only work with whatever you give me to work with. So I will say, I don't think I can introduce any new extra credits or things I haven't thought of at this point. I mean, if something comes to me, I'll try, but you know, and I'm not going to make a whole new assignment or something that's then going to make the grading very complicated. So I don't really, I feel like if you look through all the game turn things, there still are opportunities that you might have taken that you don't realize that you could still record now. Like some of you have used your voice. Some of you have, like Edie, just for example, Edie totally speaks, right? Like I know her, and I'm saying this like I know Edie's voice. I know she's used her voice. I believe that she's remembered to submit and say that. There's a portal for that. It's called like Speak Softly or Forever or something.
Speak
Like,
or forever hold your words.
right, exactly. Thank you. So like, that's not a great title. I apologize. So some people might have missed it, but look through the old. So, but if you're like Edie, if you have used your voice, maybe you didn't realize that you could have reminded me of that and got a certain number of points for it. It's definitely not too late for that. For any of you who have done that, and there's things like that. So just look through any of the game assignments that technically you aren't even due until tonight or tomorrow night or something. You can definitely put those in. And I thought of as many ways as I could. It doesn't have to be that you have to be a loud person to get them. But again, what I'm trying to say to everybody is if you give me anything to work with, I want to work with it and make your experience and your grade as good as possible. But in everybody's case, I need something to work with.
Professor?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
I
Sorry.
have a question. You had emailed us with the roll number as well as something to book to meet with you. So are you giving us time to meet with you guys?
Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's a great question, but maybe I missed. No, all I was trying to say with that email. I see why you're saying that. I'm sorry. No, I got you. Right, because there's an automatic old thing at the bottom of my emails that's about, yeah, she's totally right, but it's totally my bad. Okay, yes, each one of you, I tried to just send a quick email saying the row number of the grading. That was the purpose of the email, so that but at the bottom, she's right. It says something like book a meeting with me. That's like an old automatic signature thing that I used to have I forgot that was still there from before COVID. That was like a way, no, nobody has to meet with me. In fact, I don't have time. I don't need anybody. I don't want anybody to meet with me unless you have to. That's just like that was like an automatic signature, weird thing for it. That's like if you wanted to book a meeting with me, you were supposed to press that button, but it doesn't even work anymore. If you, at this point, if anybody wants to meet or talk to me, just text me. And I'm not saying you can't, but no, right. I'm not, that book a meeting thing at the bottom is, sorry, that's a mistake. That's just an old function. I forgot that was still there. So no, all I'm trying to tell everybody is their row in this spreadsheet so they could see their grades. Again, it's a little bit dicey that I just gave you all the full class grading sheet, but honestly, the other reason I'm doing it is so that you can see there's actually quite a wide range of grades, even with just, with one midterm, or even with just like the fact that supposedly our midterm was totally open universe, there's still a wide range of grades. And why am I saying that? Partly I'm saying that to say, I feel like you guys have done good work and we've had a fair, clear system here where if you want it, what I'm trying to say is there's plenty of different ways to get a good grade. And there's already like close to 1/3 of the people already have A's, and I'm good with that. I'm good with it being more than that. But I also want you to see that, yeah, you can see on that sheet that there are C's and D's and stuff. And that's just to show any of you, if you got a B or you got an A, don't think that it's just an automatic gift, or don't think it's a joke, or don't think you didn't earn whatever you did get if you're all proud of it. Like, obviously anything can happen in this class because there's actually been that much grading data. I mean, that's the other way to put it. There's that many freaking numbers in this class. There's been that many little things. I mean, they're all little, but there's so many of them over a fast 5-week period that they added up to make a broad range of possibilities. Hopefully, again, most people will be okay with their grades. Like, right now, the average is not a C. It's like a B-. That's good. Hopefully, it'll be higher than that. But just know, if you don't like your grade right now, there's still things that can be done, such as rock the final. I'll get to that in a second. But also know that if you do like your grade, you can see it is not based on a gift.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So
on the computer.
Thank you, Tomika. Okay. So direct chat person who asked about extra credits, I totally understand the question, but I think I'm done making extra credit stuff now at this point. I'm kind of, okay, I think I answered that. I feel bad, but oh yeah. But yeah, and right when class is over, I can try to help anybody look, but hopefully you can see where you're standing based on, if you look at your row, if you look all the way to the end, you'll see, well, all right, but yes, anybody who wants to hang out after class, I can talk more personally, but okay. Oh, and so the cutoff from an A and A-, hopefully I answered that. The cutoff between an A and A- technically is 92. Like technically, if you have a 92, you get an A-, and technically if you have a 93, you get an A. But I'll tell you again right now, if you're right now at a 92, right now, if you're already at 92, just do a little bit more, like, do homework 5 or whatever. And chances are you'll end up, especially if I know your name, you'll probably end up with an A. It's not going to take much to fall over that borderline. But technically the borderline of minus to regular is 2, right? Like 82 is B minus technically, and 83 is B. I'm just oh, thank you. Okay. Oh, thank you for direct chat. That's very nice. I appreciate it. Okay, no problem about the apologies. No problem. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Oh. Wait, okay. This email, I mean, this chat from Catherine, which is public, is interesting. Of course, it's totally possible that I just completely, it's good. All right. I was worried that I might make a mistake and send somebody the wrong row. That certainly is possible and concerning. And it's nice that Catherine even went public with that. So Catherine should hang out for a second afterwards so I can make sure of what happened. Maybe I just did give her the wrong row. But of course, it's nice that she sent that publicly, because if I gave Catherine the wrong, it's possible that I did that with another one of you, or in fact, more probable if I switch. So, the main way to know, if you should be checking your row for your grades, and like go first to hope. This is all assuming you all got your midterm back last night. I mean, I sent them. I don't know if you all saw them, but you check your midterm grade to make sure that it lines up with what you thought. That would be the most sort of obvious indicator that you're on the right row. If you, in other words, if there's any chance that you think it's the wrong row, then I apologize and hang out for a second after class. Wait. Wait. Whoa, you're saying the rows are different if you open it in Google Drive? Is that what you're saying, Kate? Wait.
Yeah.
The rows are literally different? Wait.
Yes, yes, but I have the same problem. You gave me a number, and then when I went to go count it, it was a whole different numbers. So I kept going back to my grades and matching it, and it was wrong.
Wait. Okay, but I hear what you're saying, and that is definitely concerning. Oh, wait, but one thing. Wait, when I'm saying the row number, guy, yeah, you definitely do want this. Definitely don't. It's definitely a Google Sheet thing that is best opened in Drive, I guess. But are you aware, like the row number, you shouldn't have to count rows. Like you see that there are rows numbered all the way to the left, like in all the way to the left, the rows are numbered. And if you, the thing is, if you're scrolling in a funny way, how can I put this? Like, I do know what you're saying. Like, there's a way that you have to be careful how you open it. That is true, I guess. How to say this right? I mean, because there's a scrolling thing where like you could think you're on a certain row, but you're not actually on that row. Well, the best thing I could say is, I guess, if there's any confusion about if it's the right row, hang out for a second after class and we'll work it through, I guess, is the best thing to say. Can I just get a say, is it working for most people? Is it clear for, or is it clear for anybody? Does anybody seem to think that they are finding what does look like their work and their stuff? Oh, thank you. Okay, that's helpful. Oh, okay, good. Okay, oh, that's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. As far as the number. Oh, yeah. Right. Like, don't just like literally count. Right. If you look all the way to the left, these are actual official row numbers, like, and they are counting. Right. If I say you're row number 6, it does not mean like your student number 6. It actually, in fact, means your student number 1 in a way. Right. Like the rows above with all the titles and stuff are counting as rows. You literally have to like scroll all the way to the left to see the row things, and then make sure like that you're not accidentally double clicking on a box or something like that. Because it's true. I can't even explain it. I don't fully understand it, but if you scroll a certain way, then it starts making you think you're on a certain row when you're not. But the rows actually have like official numbers. And the
Oh,
number,
I see what you mean, Professor. I had clicked it on the Google sheet, and I see what you mean by now. I see the numbers. It's correct.
Oh, phew. Okay, cool. All right, cool. All right. So I appreciate, okay, good. Oh, and yay, Catherine. Okay. All right. So I'm glad this, all right. Yeah, it is a little weird. Okay. And again, this is just meant, hopefully, as like annoying and stressful as this might be to people right now, this is meant to reduce stress next week for, so play around with it if it's mostly clear to people. Again, please understand it's an estimator. Your grade won't be worse than this. It won't. But you can play with the numbers and you'll see what will happen to your grade, also, if we had more time, I do think, look, okay, no, bless you. Okay, well, and it's a fine line, right? Again, I've been doing this for a long time. I got to tell you, the first 10 or 15 years I was teaching, I would never talk about grades. If anybody asked me any grading question, I was a jerk. I was like, you should just be caring about the material. It's all about the love of physics. The minute you start worrying about your grade, you're worrying about the wrong thing anyway. And like, I'm not even, which I think is wrong now, but that was my attitude. For like 15 years, I was so into the physics and I was so idealistic. And I had this belief that like the way to get an A was just to totally care about the work and the knowledge and the learning. And if you didn't even think about the grade at all, then you'd get a good grade. And if you were too obsessed with your grade, then you would just get in your own way. I do not believe that anymore. I mean, I believe that was like not fair of me. I mean, that was a long time ago. I believe that was an unfair attitude on a lot of levels, and an unrealistic attitude. So now I try to go the other way. Like, I totally respect that, you're paying tuition to get through college. I get it. You're paying tuition to get on with your life. And like, if I can make it slightly less miserable or slightly interesting along the way, then good for me. But like, you didn't come here looking for a love affair. You came here looking to do something practical and have an exchange with me. Like, you pay the money, you get, and you do your work, you get your currency back in grades. Like, I really do get that. And that's why I want to be as transparent and clear as possible and as fair as possible at all this. But then I also want to say, in our last 2 days, like, it is still a fine line, because I will say there's a point at which, right, if you don't care about your grade at all, then you don't get a good grade. But if you care too much about the grade, and like, you put the cart before the horse, if you're focusing too much about how to get an A and not enough of just trying to get the material, that can contradict itself. That can become a problem. And there is part of me that doesn't really want to spend the last 2 days like just obsessing over this, because I feel like not only is that boring, but I feel like for some people, it actually will screw them up more and make them more stressed. And if we could just do physics, the cream will rise to the top. So at some point, I'm going to get back to physics, but it's a fine line. It's a fine line for all of us, like between, ideals and practicality. I've also been in situations where I've just said to myself right from the start, everybody's going to get an A. I'm not even going to worry about it. Let's just all try to learn. And then, of course, not everybody learns. I don't need to explain that to you. Okay. So I think I'm getting all the. So, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, in the next couple of days, try to do the work, try to learn some physics, maybe even, whatever. Try to think about the physics, because the physics is really cool. But when you're worried about your grade and stuff, do play around with this sheet. Like, some of the questions you might send to me might be more easily answered by yourself with this sheet. And at this point, you just figuring out the minimum you have to do in order to get a grade that you're satisfied with is fine by me, as long as it's the minimum honest, authentic stress possible. Like, I think we understand what I mean by that. Okay. Yeah. All right. So,
Professor, not to cut you off, but the Google Sheets gives us only like the option to view it. We can't edit it or anything.
oh, wait, that is really important. Wait, that's
You can find a copy of it and then you can edit it.
Oh, good point. Good response. Wow. Okay. That is totally an important point, because if there was nothing, I do mean for you to be able to edit it, but that's a great response from Antonio. Thank you. So did everybody hear that? So if you want to play around with this thing, you got to copy it first and then you can play around with it. And that makes sense.
I'm not 100% sure, but with most documents, you could just make a copy of it and then you could change it around.
Someone might even want to try
I'm
that.
trying that right now. Yep, I'm trying it right now.
Okay, cool, thanks. Oh, wait. While you're get back, and that's really important because one of the reasons I'm taking the risk of giving you all everybody's grades like this is I want you to be, I mean, I have many different options, but I want you to be able to play with it. So yeah, let me know if that copy thing.
Yes, it works like that. It's
It
working
doesn't
for
work?
me.
Oh, wait, oh, it does?
It
Great.
does.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. I'm happy about that. Okay, hang on. Okay, so now there's a couple other questions in the chat and I'm going to move on, but no, I appreciate this. This actually makes me feel a lot better about the whole thing, dude. And again, I do mean it, especially if we're all ending this peacefully and stuff like, and again, there's a lot more physics I want to tell you, but the purpose of this also is that like, if we all had to end right now, we would know how to end. Like if I couldn't tell you any more physics and you couldn't do any more work, we would be able to still walk away, you know, peacefully. That's part of the goal of this, but so that in another way to look at it, everything we do from here on is hopefully relaxed bonus. Therefore, let me answer these other two questions in the chat. One thing is in direct chat, I'm getting, what if in the worst case scenario, someone flunks the final, but they currently have an A? How much will it change the final grade? Okay, that is a fair question. And I am, I mean, well, there's two answers to that. One, put it in the sheet and see, for real. If you have an A right now, you can literally put in the final exam column, like put in 40 and see what happens to your A. That's one answer. And that would be the worst thing that could happen to you. But also know that that's the worst thing that can happen to you, but also know that I'm going to weight the final less. I'm looking to do not much more work this semester either, any more than you guys. So, and my goal has been to try to get as many solid earned fair A's as possible. So I'm not going to be spending my time trying to see what work I can include into the spreadsheet to help the people that have lower grades. The truth is you're going to have to like really bark at my attention and really get me to pay attention. If you already have an A, I'm probably not paying it. I don't mean I'm not paying attention to you as a human being, but I'm probably not paying attention to your row in the spreadsheet all that much if you already have an A. Like I'll even tell you I was even tempted, but I'm not going to, like, what I'm saying is don't stress it too much. I want you to take the final because I think it'll be an important exercise. I think that it'll force you to, especially if you already have an A, then it shouldn't be that stressful. And that means you've been learning some physics. So it's real, you've been slogging through a physics story. So it's really worth knowing the punchline of that story. But if you already have an A, you should be taking the rest. If you are, and I'm saying this to everybody, part of my goal is, if you forget A, if you already have a grade that you're satisfied with, then please join with me in the next 2 days and just trying to listen to and absorb as much physics as you can from me for its own sake. Like just relax. I mean this, because physics is actually really super cool. Like, I don't know if I've gotten that across or not, but physics is like mind blowing. And it's also an emotional safety zone for many of us. Like, you know, your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your husband or your wife or whatever can break up with you. Your children can I don't mean to say that, but like human beings can treat each other bad. And I'm not saying that's happened to me. I'm just saying like children can get hurt, like jobs can get lost. But math equations do not insult people. Math equations can be hard, but they are not hard on you. They're hard to you until you get them. And then they're a gift. Like, don't get me started on this, but one of the reasons I love physics and math is because once I get it, it's there forever. It's there forever, more than money, more than other people, more than like material possessions. Like an equation is a piece of truth that once you understand it, like connects you to the stars and to the ancient Greeks and the ancient Mesopotamians and whomever. Like, I mean that for real. Like there is something about physics that is so psychologically soothing once you can be a little relaxed with it. When you're not in the stressful zone of it, it can provide more relaxation than a lot of other things. So if you already have an A in this class or you already have a grade that you're okay with, please take this spreadsheet as a strong assurance that you're allowed to sit back now and try to get some actual physics out of this and stop worrying about your grade at this point. And I mean that. I almost was going to do a thing where anybody who liked their grade didn't have to take the final at all, but I'm not doing that. But I'm doing the closest possible thing to that. I'm saying if you already like your grade, take the final for fun and for free and for learning. Don't take it as a panic exercise. Like, trust me, if you already like your grade, it's probably not going to get, it's not going to get dramatically worse. And it's probably not going to get worse, really. And so the other question is, I mean, that's as good as I can say that. I can't, like, if you literally flunk the final, well, run the numbers in the spreadsheet and see what's going to happen. But I don't think it's going to happen to most of you. If you already have an A, and I'm going to show you the final in a second too, or at least what I have been so far. And yes, every class is on YouTube, and it's still time. You still get, there's still time to subscribe. I am that vain at this point, but I'll say that too. You know, you subscribe, you get points for that. But every one of these classes on YouTube, it's all one big playlist that's in order. You can go from the beginning of the whole semester to the end. It's like one of the advantages of COVID. You could do this whole class. I actually do have people that are not in this class that do that, which is weird, but like my little weird former student fan base or something. But yes, every single class with one exception, one recording got screwed up. The whole thing is there on YouTube, but also, honestly, if you care about any of this E&M stuff at all that we're doing now, or you care about any material that you feel like we didn't get to very deeply, as I think it was Catherine pointed out like weeks ago, the last 4 semesters or whenever since COVID started are all also in playlists on YouTube, less organized, but they're all there. And there's a lot of material I did there in more depth than I'm getting to do here because they were longer courses or whatever. So you're welcome to, you know, pop around there and just like whatever, if you're interested in the physics. Also, I have books on Amazon if you care, but yes, everything here is on YouTube that will help with the final. Yes, and no one's coming off of the no way. Oh, thank you. Cool. Physics is cool. Okay. Okay, hold on. I'm just responding to one private chat. Okay. Okay. So I think, so I'm hoping we're sort of, again, I kind of want to get to physics here, but are we, and again, all right, I'll say this from here on, and also again, and let's be sparing about this, but again, okay, so again, from here on in, if there was something wrong with your exam or so, if you like, it's all about time at this point. If you think something was wrong with your midterm grading or something like that, you can text me. The more, just remember, ask me a question that could take me less time to answer than it took you to type the question. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is why I give out my cell rather than email, because I want it to be like a texting thing. Like, ask me something quick. Like, professor, is it possible that you forgot to include my extra credit? Like, I didn't really want to hear those questions yesterday. I'm sorry if I was like rude about that, but of course I can hear them now. Or is it, you know, is it possible that I think you added up the points wrong on page 3. Can you look, like, text me anything like that, or with your grades, or like, professor, I think that I actually, you know, got this on homework 4, but you have in the spreadsheet that, whatever, you can text me those things. One of the good news about all this is that, of course, Google Classroom is sort of all automated, which I love. So it's, you know, likely, hopefully I have all the same numbers that you have, which is the good news. But okay, so wait, what was it? What is that true, Juanita? You know, I've been wondering about that. Is that true that I once asked this, if for some of them, if there's no volume, that totally bums me out to hear that, and I did not know that, but I had a suspicion that that is not intentional. That is a glitch, if that's true. I don't know if that's true of a lot of them. I don't know if other people could confirm that, but is that true on some of the YouTube videos? There's no sound at all, Juanita is saying?
Yeah, like on 1 or 2 of the videos that I was looking at, there was no sound. Like, you can tell, you can see that you're talking and stuff, but there is no sound coming too.
I am so sorry. I do not know why. if you like in the text link, if you tell me which ones they are, I'll try to re-upload and see if I can.
Yeah, what I did, what I just had to do though was when you put the closed caption, it reads what you're saying.
Oh, right. That's a really good point. I mean, it's so crazy that that's true. That's a good idea. I mean, and I'll try to fix them in the future, but yeah, that's probably the best thing to do for now. I'm so sorry that I have no idea why it didn't come through with some of them. I hope it's not too many of them, but yeah, I get that probably is the best thing to do. Yeah, I think is it, and other people have had that experience too. So, oh, thank you for telling me though. I don't know why. But hope, yeah, oh, okay. Okay, thank you, Direct Chapter. So apparently it's some of them and it's sort of random and I don't know why. But yes, she is right. I mean, Juanita's, I knew that could be possible. But and thank you for bringing it to my attention. The best thing to do is, I guess, at this point is run the subtitles like Juanita suggested, which is cool. Okay. One second, I'm pausing it. Crazy things are happening again. Okay. And thank you. Okay, and thank you, Catherine. And so, yeah, maybe you guys can give that out on the side. I don't know. But okay, people are coming back. And soon, wait, what time is it? Soon I have to get back to physics. All right, I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to do one more thing that made me get me totally off track. But it's not meant to. But it's meant to help again. What I'm about to do, hopefully, is upload to you or to share with all of you what the final exam is looking like. You're going to be surprised when you see it. I think pleasantly surprised in a way, but I'm giving it to you now. When you see it, you'll see why. I'm not giving you answers. I'm just giving it to you. And again, it can be open, whatever, when you take it, but mainly I'm giving it to you now so that you know what to pay attention to for the next half of today and all of tomorrow. Like all of tomorrow, and whatever's left of today, I'm just going to be, okay, cool. I'm just going to be going through the last aspects of physics or trying to put together the physics as best as I can. And you'll have this document in front of you to know what to look for and how to pay attention and stuff. So let me get it to you right now. Hold on. It's not complete. What I'm about to give you is a big portion of it. And as I write more, I'll probably upload more. Like it's not meant to be a surprise. It's to tell you how to pay attention to class. But I think you will find the format surprising. Hold on one second. Now I'm a little, okay, so we're about to shift gears. I'm about to put what I think is a, wait. Okay, wait. One second. Okay. Okay. Sorry, one second. All right, well, this is also risky in a different way, but here it comes. This may engender some confusion, but right, again, what I'm sending you now is like practice, even though it's, well, I'm a little nervous about that, actually. Hang on a minute, hang on. I don't necessarily want this to. All right, let's see this. In a moment, you should see in your stream, and again, God. Yeah, let me know if you see, you will see something in your stream. Oh, look in the chat. Yes. Oh, wait. Go ahead. Okay, I'm just scrolling through the chat. But let me. Oh, yeah.
Practice again.
Okay, you see it? Okay.
Yeah, the true or false file.
Yes. So here's the weird. That's the one. So here's the weird. The good or the bad news. I told you guys that the final might be shorter in some way. Some people asked, might it only be one question? I went the other direction. For good or for bad, your final is going to be like this kind of thing. It's going to be like true or false or multiple choice questions. Some of them might be multiple choice. Right now, they're all true false. Right now, there's like 15 true false questions. There will be more. I think it'll be more like 25, but it's going to be like that. And it's going to be statements. I should have warned you, almost none of those could you answer right now. It's based largely on almost not, well, some of them you could, but basically once we get rolling, you're going to have to pay attention to everything I'm going to say for the next hour and pay attention to everything I say for the 2.5 hours on the last day. It's meant to put the material together. They're very mathematical, but they're not quantitative, if that makes sense. Like they're hard, but they're just true, false. And you can talk to, or in some will be multiple choice. You can talk to one another, blah, 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 blah. Again, and that's a beta version or a draft version, because if I don't, I'm going to start rolling any minute again now. We still have an hour and 15 minutes. I know what I'm going to say. I know what I'm trying to say. And then tomorrow I'll say more. And then, like I had warned you guys, I'll post this thing at 4 p.m. Excuse me. I said I'd post it by 7 p.m. and some people asked, could I post it earlier, like 4 p.m. I'll post it as early as I can, but I will take a look at it first and make sure that there are no questions on there that I didn't get a chance to say in the last 2 days. And there will be other questions from like a few days ago and stuff like that. But so for some of you, this will be way easier than a lot of other things we've done. For some of you, it'll be weird and hard, I suppose. But just re-scroll through the videos over and over to see, like, that is all about stuff that I will have said, whether it was last week or in the next, 4 hours. The more you actually listen closely, or the more you see me try to put this material together, the more a lot of those statements will make sense. Like some of them right now look like total gibberish. So of course you can't tell whether they're true or false if they look like gibberish. But if you stay tuned and hang with me, they won't look like gibberish by the end. Like that's my goal. And you can replay the videos a million times. And you'll also see these are kind of, they're exotic kind of ideas that I want to finish the course with, but they're also not ideas that I'm making up. So the truth is, of course, in some ways, it's easier to find these kind of answers on the web than some of my other, in some ways, of course, if you just poke around on the web, you can find out whether they're true or false at some level. I would be careful with that, but anyway, so I may or may not. So if the question is, am I going to give out answers to these? I'm going to speak out the answers as I talk for the next 4 hours. Like I know the 15 questions I've already written there. I know some more that I'm going to give you and I'll probably post tonight, but my goal for the next 4 hours is to explain the answers to those true false statements. It might not be in exactly the order that they appear there, but you can hold that along next to you as you're listening to me, and try to, like, that's where I'm going. I'm trying to show you something about physics that can be stated by that document. So if that helps you listen, then good. If, like anything else, if right now you're looking at it and you're like, what? I don't even know what this is. I understand. Don't let it stress you out. It is because I still have, at least 2.5 hours tomorrow. That's like a typical double class, right? I can cover in a double class. I can translate what looks like gibberish into English for you. That's my job. But that's what I'm going to try to explain for the next 2 days is stuff that's right there. That's what your final exam will be. Again, if you already have an A in the class or you already have a grade that you're satisfied with, don't let that document stress you out. If you don't like your grade right now, then just take the document really seriously and use it to pay attention to me for the next 4 hours that we have together. Okay.
So because it's true and false, there's no work you want us to show or submit?
I know, that's a great question, Leonie. Isn't that amazing? And you know me so well at this point. It's so shocking that the answer to Leonie's, which I'm probably still not even pronouncing your name right after all these semesters, but she's right. I don't even want to see your work. I want us all to get the heck out of here. In fact, I'm not even sure Google Forms itself might even grade that thing, which I know is crazy. Part of me wants to like vomit on myself for this idea. Right. I don't need to show you work. And in some ways, therefore, I'm opening myself to cheating. And I know it in some ways. But again, like you got to even know what those things mean, even to know how to look them up and cheat and stuff like that. And but anyway, right. I don't want it. I'm trusting the universe. I don't want to see work or anything. I just want to see answers. There's going to be like 25 questions. So even if you just randomly guessed all of them, you'd only get a 50. Nobody wants to get a 50 on a thing like this. But all the parts of my body and soul that say it's really important for people to show their work and do a lot of physical stuff, part of why I'm here today is to say, I think you've all done your job with that for the last 4.5 weeks. Like you can see from that spreadsheet, I got tons of homework and tons of thick exam pages from all of you. I've got tons of grading data from all of you. Everybody has stayed together and sweated bullets, including me. I don't think we need to show any more work at this point. You don't need to do it and I don't need to see it. I couldn't say that if we didn't have the midterms back and all that, but I feel like I can say that now with all this grading data. So, right. I'm totally glad she asked because it is sort of shocking that I would do this, but right. When it comes time for the final, you're just going to submit that thing true, false. You're not going to show work. You're going to help each other if you want, but hopefully trying to get right answers to that will force you to like find out some physics. Okay. So, and if you think that thing is a joke, good. Don't think of it as a joke. Think of it as a reward for all your hard efforts. If you don't think it's a joke, then pay attention for the next 4 hours. Okay, we're gonna have class. Just all take.
I have a quick question, Professor.
Yeah, I'm just looking for, wait, 1 second. I'm just looking for, wait, 1 second. I'm just looking in the chat. No, right. I appreciate what's being said in the chat about the past YouTubes. That's all true. Practice is up, yes. And I am like, yeah, my internet. Wait, let me check my internet. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm about to change it. The internet, I am lagging or glitching or whatever. Hold on. I might be fixing it right now. Okay, wait. And I know you have a question. Yeah, that no, you're gonna class notes are just all time. Wait, if you submit. Wait, so I know you have a question. I just want to get these things in the chat before I forget. Am I gonna have class notes or just all talking? I'm not sure what that means, but submit. I intentionally made this. This is a practice exam. It's not the real thing. You couldn't submit it if you tried. It's not submittable. I don't think. But don't. I mean, you could try, but I won't grade it. I mean, the real thing will be posted after Wednesday and will look very much like this, but not exactly. The final, basically, this is like 15 of the questions, more or less. The final will probably be like 25. It'll be the flavor of these. I'm not saying, and some of them might be changed slightly, whatever, but basically it's like these plus like 10 more. Yeah, I mean, that's not an exact promise, but basically that's the idea. Wait, okay. I see what you're at. Once you do submit this thing, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I might flip that. I kind of have to practice with this because it's been a little while since I've used this whole format. It's possible that when we do this final exam, you'll know your final exam grade immediately after submitting it. I might flip that switch and that might make it easier for all of us, but I might not. I can't promise. But yes, this is supposedly this should be an auto grading thing. So it should turn itself around very quickly. So sorry, it was Caleb had a question a second, or Jay, I think Caleb just had a question.
Yeah. I mean, two of the questions I had you just answered. The other one, I was just saying, you skip on saying you have 4 more hours. Is that a mistake or is that just a different class this time?
Oh, no, I mean, no, it's an exaggeration, I guess. I mean, I have 1 more hour today. No, yeah, it's an exaggeration. As far as I know, I have 1 more hour today. Wait, we do have class tomorrow, right? Or do we not?
I wouldn't think we don't. Why wouldn't we?
Oh, okay. No, okay. So right. Okay. So I wouldn't. So what I really mean when I keep saying 4 hours, I really mean I have like 1 more hour today. And then I have 2.5 tomorrow. So 3.5 hours. I'm exaggerating, but that's what I mean by my 4 more hours.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And also the question about the notes, I think they're asking about how you usually post sort of the notes that you were writing down. I think they're asking, are you going to post that for today as well?
Oh, thank you. Yes. Oh, once I actually start writing, absolutely I will. Yeah. And they'll probably be important. Yeah. Definitely. And again, this stuff, no, thank you. And yeah, so I will get rolling soon. Sorry I'm taking this long. But again, I guess I'm spending all this time on the grade thing, kind of just to compartmentalize. Like, okay, so now we spent an hour on grades and whatnot, but hopefully it means that we're now all clear with that and we can put it out of our mind for the next 3.5 hours when hopefully I'm just going to talk about physics. And I'm going to say this again too. I did get a little feisty about this yesterday. From here on in, because I feel like I'm doing everything I can to get you all this grading information in as big a way as I can. From here on in, any questions about personal grades and stuff, please do text me. And please do text me. But in other words, please don't use class time for it, because I do want to do my best job to give you the end of the physics story before I go. And I'm kind of doing all this so that everybody's brains can be as clear and as focused as they can on these last 3.5 hours of doing the physics. Like, I don't want to be distracted or be going back and forth between physics and grades and stuff once I get rolling. So any concerns there are about grades, I honor them, I respect them, but try to give them to me privately, please, outside of class time. Oh, y'all, that's number one. But yes, I'll definitely post the notes for this, definitely. And then now goes back to Juanita's thing. She's totally right. Like, the truth is, I mean, and look, again, I'm trying to walk a fine line, but those questions on the final that I just gave you, like, for some of you, you might be being like, oh my God, it's just true, false. This is such a gift. Like, I'm going to the beach right now. Fine. But some of you, if you're reading the questions, might be like, what the heck is this? Like, what is he even talking about? That's also understandable. I mean, I think the truth lies in between the both, But basically my point is this now, what we're about to do now is like very fast version of the super intense physics material that, like, you know, people go on Nova and talk about in movies and stuff like that. Like physics gets psychedelic once you let it, and once you have a certain math grounding for it. It does get heady physics in a what I think is a good way, but I want you guys to see that part of physics. So what am I trying to get at? So, but I have to be very fast because it's a 5-week course, blah, blah, blah. I only have 3.5 hours left. So the truth of the matter is, if you really want to understand the material that I'm asking you in true false, if you want to know what I'm talking about and get the answers right for authentic, honest reasons, besides paying attention to me for the next 3.5 hours, it's true what Juanita is saying. Like, I have a lot of videos on this channel where I explain it in much more depth. I'm not trying to like advertise myself or something like that, but the truth is I used to have more time to talk about this for various reasons, like longer courses, blah, blah, blah. So if you're at all interested in trying to get the material straight, please do poke around, like the playlist from spring of 2020, like when COVID first started, this spring of 2020 or summer of 2020, the playlists aren't as organized, things are out of order, but you know, if you see any video that has the word field in it, E field, B field, Gauss's law, like I encourage you to check them out for the sake of understanding this better, or for later, or for another physics course that you might have to take, like, or don't. But yes, if you're going to try to rock this final, that is a resource that would help, is the old videos for sure. And there's also a book on Amazon called Backfields, where I wrote, which you can get if you want. I mean, I believe me, I don't make money off it or anything like that, but you know, that could help too if you can get it quickly. But I don't think it should be necessary, but it could be helpful. But okay. Oh, someone's on waiting. Sorry. Okay. So I think we're going to look at chat one more time, but I think we're good. Oh, wait, okay. I think I'm going to take a breath and start this. Again, I figure we've got like 1 hour today. We've got like 2.5 hours tomorrow. I'm hoping that we show up tomorrow. Okay. Let me pause for a second. We're all going to take it. Maybe I'll even say take a 2-minute. If everybody wants to take a 2-minute breather to go like use a bathroom or whatever, I'm going to clear my head for a second, and then I'm just going to do physics, and it's just going to be physics tomorrow. Okay, so let's all pause for like 2 minutes while we shift gears. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, so here we go. This is about physics. This is about how cool physics can be, in my opinion, but it's going to look pretty mathy. Math is the language of physics. What I'm going to try to explain in the next hour and a half, and then the next 2.5 hours tomorrow, what I'm going to try to do is circle us all the way back to our original goals of physics and show how far they've come. Our original goals of physics at the beginning of Physics 203, our beginning goals were to understand how things move through space and time. Physics is about those three elements: things, space, and time. And in any given moment, the goal of a physicist is to be able to predict for some given point of mass at some given point in space and time, at what point in space will that point of mass be at some future particular point in time, right? That's like all a physicist is trying to do, or variations on that. Maybe predict how much time it will take for a point of mass to get to a specific point in space. Or maybe if it's a forensic physicist, as many of us in the modern world and in this John Jay program, many of us are, maybe it's to retrodict where some point of mass was, or yeah, where some point of mass was at some past point in time, like where must the gun have been if the bullet is now here, right? So you might be looking in the past, or you might be looking in the future. But if you're a physicist, what you're trying to do is know where things are in space and time. And that's it. Things, space, and time. That's the world of physics. And in some sense, Physics 203, or the beginning, or well, first course in physics, lays down all the principles and the practices that we need to make those predictions and retrodictions. Like the equations, the definitions, the techniques for problem solving in the labs in Physics 203 are, in a way, the toolkit for how we go about answering the question, where is something going to be when? So at some level, the question then arises, like, so we think we're trying to understand how things are moving through space and time. That's what we think we're trying to do in Physics 203, or in the 17th century, in the 18th century, when we're like trying to figure out how to best fire projectiles to the opposing like army, or predict like how objects in space are going to eclipse other objects in space, blah, blah, blah. We think we're trying to figure out how things move through space and time. And we think we give ourselves those tools in a first course in physics, or in like classical 18th century, 17th century foundations of physics. But what we find out is a couple of things, and this is what brings us to Physics 204, Physics 2. The reason we have more courses in physics, in a way, is because, first of all, we find out that our definition of things needs to be broader than we might have believed in Physics 1. That we are still here only to study things moving through space and time, but things can be more abstract than we might have realized. Things don't have to be material. Things don't have to be massive as such. They don't have to be tangible or palpable. Things can be things like sound waves, right? And when I say that things can be things like sound waves, what I mean is, again, just to remind you, that certain phenomena or entities exist in the universe that are not material or massive or tangible, but A, they actually really do exist, B, more like sound waves, but B, not only do they exist, they actually occupy space and time and move through space and time in a measurable, analyzable, predictable way. In other words, quick sidebar, I think justice exists in the world. I also think injustice exists in the world. Like I think justice is real and injustice is real, or love and hate. Like they're not tangible, they're not real, but they exist in the world. Love and hate, I think they might even exist more strongly than like any beast of side. But love and hate and they might even, love and hate exist in the world, but I don't think they occupy space and time in a measurable, analyzable, predictable way, right? Like love does not like propagate down my block in Crown Heights and like make a left turn at some velocity or something, where by virtue of which I could say, well, there's love over here right now on Kingston Avenue, and in 2 days there will be love on like Eastern Parkway. Like, no, like that's not how it works. And that's not how hate works either. They might exist, but they don't occupy or move through space and time in a measurable, analyzable, predictable way. Therefore, as much as love and hate and justice and injustice and all these things exist, and as much as they might even be more important than like anything else in the world, they're not part of physics, right? Like I care about love and hate and justice and injustice, but I don't use physics to study them. I use physics to study entities that move through time and space in a measurable, analyzable, predictable way. And it turns out that there are entities such as sound waves that meet those criteria. They're invisible, they're immaterial, they're intangible, they're ethereal. Sound waves are, I mean, but yet they move through air at 340 meters per second. And as long as there's a sound over here right now, you can totally use the equations of physics to predict where that sound will be in 5 seconds, right? That's pretty cool. That in itself is kind of like the reason we need physics too, because there are such things like sound that are not material in the way the objects of physics 203 were, but they still follow all the practices and principles of physics. Okay. So we have physics too. So we start studying. So first we started studying oscillators and stuff and put a lot of oscillators together. We used old physics, mechanical physics, to put things like oscillators together, and I mean, to understand one oscillator. And then we said, if we string a bunch of oscillators together, you can make this crazy phenomenon called a wave, which now is an immaterial entity that still follows the rules of physics. We also said in physics 204 that if you take like a little bit of mass and you take another bit of mass, you notice that they interact with each other. They pull on each other through empty space. Like they pull on each other without there being any material agent or material medium or material contact or physical interloper between them. Like the sun evidently pulls on the earth without touching it or without sending any kind of material particles or tangible elements from the sun to the earth. They just interact immaterially. So we said, well, oh, from oscillators, we can build up waves, which seem to be these immaterial propagations of information through space. And then we said, oh my God, wait, there's these fundamental forces. There are certain fundamental forces such as gravitation and also such as electrostatics, by virtue of which actual thingy things, objects, material objects in the world can send information to each other through empty space, like without being material. And again, why do I say information? Like I say a sound wave is information, right? If I sing the note A and you hear the note A, what I just sent to you was something vibrating at 440 cycles per second. I sent you a number. And if you say, ooh, that was bad, like if you have good pitch or whatever, and I sing badly, and you're like, oh, that was bad. Yeah, you're really saying that was the wrong number you just sent me, right? So sending you a sound wave is sending you information. Similarly, if you believe that the sun pulls on the earth, F equals GMM over R squared, if you believe that the sun can pull on the earth, or you believe that a proton can pull on an electron through empty space, and if you believe KQQ over R squared, right? Same for, if you believe in those equations at all, and you just accept them as, oh yes, the greater the distance between these two objects, the smaller the force, the smaller the number of newtons, the smaller the pull, then what you're saying, just to remind you, if you believe that the sun can pull on the earth in a manner that depends on how far away the earth is from the sun, then what you're saying is when the sun pulls on the earth and the earth gets closer to the sun, which happens like all the time throughout the year, if the sun pulls on the earth and the earth gets closer, if you believe F equals GMM over R squared, then you believe that the R changed, so the F must change, which means you believe that the sun must now pull on the earth harder than it did a moment ago, now that the earth is closer to it, which means that you believe that the sun somehow received the information of the earth's new location. If the sun is now adjusting and pulling harder than it was before due to the Earth's new location, that must mean that the sun has that new information. I don't mean consciously. I don't mean to be a freak. I don't mean that the sun's like sitting there like doing like human calculations or mental computations, but I'm saying if the sun is like going like this to the Earth, and we all believe that, and we believe that this depends on this, then when this changes, this changes. And that must mean that every time the Earth moves, it is sending information of its whereabouts to the sun in order for that to happen through empty space. So this course is in effect so far about two types of information that move through space and time, like physics 203 or physics 1 was about stuff, material, massive, particular stuff moving through space and time in a predictable way. I'm saying now, 204, as we wrap up, I'm trying to say, and it might have seemed disjointed to many of you, like we spent all this time on springs. What was that all about? And then all of a sudden we talk about gravity for like 5 fast minutes. And then we talk about electricity for like 3 fast minutes. And then you're doing circuits in the lab. Like what is going on? What's going on is we're trying to say, hey, there's at least 2 zones in the universe, two contexts in the universe in which we have really good reason to believe that what's moving from here to there is not a thing, but is information itself, whether you want to call it numbers or vectors or, or magnitudes or whatever. When you send a sound to me, you're sending information to me. You're not sending matter to me. And when you pull me, either electrostatically or gravitationally, you are sending information to me, whether you want to call that numerical or vectorial or magnitudinal. Like in both cases, you are sending something through space that's moving at a predictable rate in a predictable way. But in neither case is it a thing. Is it a discrete material or particular object that's going through space? The 2 topics I'm talking about here, the 2 things that our class has been about so far, I mean, it's been a lot about harmonic oscillation and the math thereof, but you could say that's about vibration. Really our class, and then we were faster on this, but the other sort of chapter of the class was gravitation/electricity. That is to say interaction. We've been looking at oscillation and interaction because those are the 2 ingredients by virtue of which I come here now today to claim to you that we are studying information as it moves through space, like abstract numbers as they move through space in measurable, observable, analyzable, predictable ways, okay? The 2 real words for those 2 things that we've been studying so far are waves and fields. Okay, like no matter how deep or not you feel like you're understanding it so far, the 2 main things we've really been talking about are waves and fields. Now, of course, it's getting more mathematical because what we're looking at, so 204, physics 2, maybe you might say the 19th and, like the 18th and 19th and 20th centuries of physics rather than like the 17th and 18th are now looking at waves and fields as they propagate through space. And that means the more abstract we're getting, first of all, the more abstract our math gets to handle that. But second of all, it means that whereas we originally once upon a time thought our question was, how does stuff move through space and time? More and more, as you look more and more deeply at physics, you kind of come to realize, I come to realize the more deeply I look at stuff moving through space and time, and the more I realize that stuff doesn't have to be that stuffy, that stuff can be numbers and vectors and field lines and whatnot, the more I realize, oh my God, physics is not really about how does stuff move through space and time. What physics is really about is space and time itself. What we're really trying to uncover is the character or the personality or the shape or the rules that govern space and time themselves. I mean, if after all, if stuff could be anything, if stuff could be a planet or an electron or a baseball or a spring or a number or a vector or a field line, if stuff could be just about almost, or energy or a pulse or all these weird words, if stuff could be almost anything, as long as it's predictably moving through space and time, then it seems after all that the real players in the game really are space and time themselves. The the deeper you go into physics, the more closely you actually find yourself looking at space and time themselves and trying to figure out what their characteristics are, which kind of means that physics not only gets more mathy, maybe more calculusy, but in fact becomes more and more like geometry. Like we're actually just looking at the shape or the texture or the behavior of space and time themselves. So I'm going to remind you, so all that said, so we're here to like look at how stuff actually, we're here to look at how space and time send information throughout its different regions. What we're really here to talk about, or to finish up, what we're really trying to find out in Physics 204 is how does a bit of information get from one point in space to another point in space? Put another way, how do we know at one point in space and time what's going on at another point in space and time without touching it all? Like, how does the sun know how far away the Earth is? That's really kind of the question of Physics 204 or physics. And we still rely on the principles and practices from basic physics itself. So let me remind you. So we're going to, okay, so that said, remember our very first homework of this semester, thing on a spring, right? It starts hopefully somewhat concretely enough. It's just an object going back and forth in a mechanical, classical way, macroscopic way. But some point in that problem, we all of a sudden, we stopped talking about forces and we started talking about energy conservation. And I reminded everybody then, when we started getting mathematical for the first time in this class, I reminded everybody that the force exerted by the force exerted by a spring on a mass is what we call a conservative force. We were able to say that energy was conserved, that the total amount of kinetic and potential over here was the same as the total amount of kinetic and potential over there, because we believe that the spring force is conservative. That's what we said. And I said, not all forces are conservative. Some forces are conservative. Forces such as the elastic force is conservative, but also gravity is conservative. What does it mean to be a conservative force? I said in English what it means to be we've said that in English, what it means to be a conservative force is it means that if you do work, a conservative force is a force that does zero net work along any closed path, along any round trip. Like the work I do to go from here back to here, if I do it if the work that I'm doing is conservative work, then that means the total amount of work I do from here to there sums up to zero. As opposed to a non-conservative force. So quick example of what I mean by that. I mean, I think I said this then, but quick example. Well, wait. Yeah, quick example. Gravity. You throw something up and then you watch it come back down. You ask yourself, what's the total amount of work done on some mass m as it's thrown up in a gravity field and then comes back down in that same gravity field? Well, if you want to know the total amount of work that gravity does on a mass m, remember, you have to first remember how work is defined in the first place. Work is force times distance. Work is force times distance. How hard you push and how much of an accomplishment that yields. How much you interact with something and how far it gets through space. That's what work is. It's like, in a way, it's like interaction. It's like the product of interaction and result. Interaction being the force, displacement being the result. That's in simplest terms what work is. But work, we have to be a little bit more precise and technical about that if we're really going to be careful. Work isn't just any old force times any old displacement, right? Work is force times displacement to the extent that the force and displacement are actually related to each other, actually relevant to each other. So in other words, I might right now have this pen in my hand. The pen might be displacing 5 meters horizontally across your screen. And the pen might have a weight and mg, a force of gravity pulling it down to the earth. So right now there is a downward pull of gravity on this pen. There is a downward pull of gravity on this pen, and the pen is being displaced horizontally like 5 meters across your screen. So there's a displacement and there's a force. But if I could multiply those two numbers together, I could multiply the number of newtons that this thing weighs. I can multiply the number of newtons that it weighs by the number of meters that it's displaced horizontally across the screen. But if I multiply those two numbers together, that's all I would be doing, is just multiplying two arbitrary, unrelated numbers to each other. That is to say, when I go like this, I think gravity is acting as a force, and I think this object is being displaced, but I don't think gravity has anything to do with this thing's horizontal displacement. I don't think gravity is sending this object across my screen. I don't think gravity is doing work on the object to get it to go across your screen. I don't think gravity is delivering any energy to this object as it goes across your screen. Why? Because the pen is going across your screen horizontally. The displacement is purely horizontal, and gravity is purely vertical. They're on two completely independent, unrelated axes. There is a force, there is a displacement, but I would not multiply the two together and say any work is being done. What is work really? It's not just force times displacement. What work really is a dot product of the force vector with the displacement vector. With the amount of work that a certain force does is really how much force is acting times whatever displacement component occurs along the same axis. And this is what a dot product is. A dot product is the dot product of two vectors is a measurement of how parallel the two vectors are, i.e. how related to each other they are, how relevant to each other they are. The dot product of a purely vertical vector with a purely horizontal vector is 0. Strictly speaking, here, I'll put this on the side. And this goes to videos that I posted, etc. Some of you are more comfortable with this than others, but if you have two vectors separated by an angle theta, an acute angle theta, the dot product of those two vectors is the magnitude of one times the magnitude of the other times the cosine of the angle between them. Remember, cosine of 0 is 1. Cosine of 90 degrees or pi over 2 radians is 0. So the smaller the angle, the bigger the cosine. So dot products measure parallelism. They measure how related two vectors are. The more parallel they are, the bigger the dot product is. And if they're purely perpendicular, the dot product is 0. Okay. So first of all, what I'm saying here, and technically this all goes back to classical physics, but it depends on like what class you had and what professor you had, blah, blah, blah. But technically, when we first define work, it's not just force times displacement, it's the dot product of force with displacement. It's the component of force that is parallel to displacement being multiplied by displacement, okay? So like if I pushed a box, so if a box was being pushed horizontally across the table and I pushed it at an angle, you would multiply the horizontal component of my push by the horizontal displacement to see how much work I'm doing on the block. Only the horizontal aspect of my push would be relevant to the horizontal displacement. All the rest of the vertical push would exist as a push, would exist as a force, but doesn't do any work, doesn't deliver any energy to the block. Okay, so work, first of all, is a dot product, I'm saying. All work is it, and this does relate to one of the multiple choice, or I'm about to, this is going to start looking like multiple choice questions now-ish. So first of all, work is a dot product. I'm not writing it, but I'm saying it. Work is a dot product of force times displacement. But then second of all, strictly speaking, work, okay, let me go to the next page. I'm saying that page. Wait, sorry. Oh. Yeah, okay. Now, by the way, what Antonio just put in the chat is a very good observation. I'm about to get to that. I'm going to also be careful. Like, I'm going to try to say whatever I can about these multiple choice questions. I'm not sure how much I can slow down and answer questions about them. I might be giving too much away. I'm not sure. But on that one, yeah. Okay. So right now, I haven't said anything about close and open yet. I'm definitely about to. Right now, I'm saying that the work that's ever done by any force through any displacement is the dot product of force with displacement, meaning we're measuring how agreed, how aligned the two vectors are. But now I'm going to get to Antonio's, right, I haven't said, you're right. I'm like, this is nothing to do with closed or open. It's like about you. But now, strictly speaking, I'm going to say, I lost all my pens. Try one more time. Sorry. Okay. Now, again, I mean, I warned you, you know, there's a lot going on here, but, and technically this is all a reminder, but like, who are we kidding? I mean, but I'm saying these things because we need them for what I want to say, but I'm just, and everything in physics builds from everything before in physics. So what I'm saying right now is, on the one hand, when you take some force and you multiply some just by some displacement, if you want to look at the work done, and remember, triple equal sign means definition. So first of all, you can't just multiply force and displacement just randomly. You got to realize that they're both vectors, and vectors get multiplied in various different ways. One way is called a dot product. When you multiply two vectors by using the dot product, what you're doing is multiplying their magnitudes and then multiplying by the angle, by the cosine of the angle between them. You're asking how parallel they are. Like, the bigger the cosine, that means the more parallel they are. And if they were, so cosine is sort of spitting out like almost like a percentage, like based on how parallel they are. A higher percentage of their magnitudes will multiply together if the two vectors are more parallel. But now, so if you had just two random vectors, a force vector and a tiny displacement vector called dx, if you dotted them together, that would, strictly speaking, give you work. But that would just give you that little bit of work right there that was done during that little bit of displacement. The reason I picked such a small, like an infinitesimal displacement, the reason this is about to get into calculus is, as proper mathematicians and physicists, we have to acknowledge, okay, if a little bit of work, in other words, I'll say this. I'm saying if you push a force, if you push an object through a tiny little displacement, multiply the force vector by the displacement vector by the cosine of the angle between them, you'll have that little bit of work that you just did right there. Now, if you do a little bit of more work, i.e. if you push again and it goes through a little more displacement, then multiply again, add the next bit of work to the first bit of work, and you'll get the total amount of work. If you do a little bit more, add the next bit to the last two bits, add them all together, you'll have the total amount of work you did. Well, why can't we just then say, okay, big W work equals just big F times big X dot producted? Like, why does calculus have to come into this? Because what if the force you're exerting along the way is not remaining constant? If it were the same force for every little bit of displacement, then sure, it'd be like F times X1 plus F times X2 plus F times X3 plus F times X4. And we can like factor out the X and just say big F times X1 plus X2 plus X3 plus X4. In other words, times the sum of all the X's. We could just say big F times big X. We can get away with that when it is one big F that's being distributed along all of these X's. But there's no law that says that that's always the case. In fact, take our friend the spring. The spring does not exert the same force for every little bit of X. Every little bit of X that you move, it's now a different F. And not just by like some step or some jump or some like new number that you throw into a box. F continuously changes as X continuously changes, right? In other words, you can divide X down to infinitesimal, tiny, tiny little different slivers. And for each little sliver of X, you have to apply a different F. So if a little bit of work is a little bit of displacement dotted with a little bit of force, then a big amount of work is the sum, the continuous sum of all of those displacements. And that's what an integral is supposed to be. Right now, you know, I tried my hardest at the beginning of this course to sort of review some calculus, differentiating rules and chain rules, stuff like that. Now we're at the end of the course, I don't have time, unfortunately, for all of us. I'd love to slow down and really break down what an integral is for everybody and show you, and I think it would help you, but we don't have time for that now. What I want to just remind you is what an integral is a continuous sum, right? An integral is a continuous sum of little products. That's what an integral is. Always. In fact, that big script thing that you see, it just is an S for sum. And it's the symbol that we use instead of the sigma. Sigma is what we use when we're summing discrete countable chunks of things. Like if we had a certain amount of force times a certain amount of displacement plus a different amount of force plus a different displacement plus a clearly countable, noticeably distinct different force plus different displacement. We could add up those chunks and get one big total amount of work. We could add them up with that symbol sigma because it was countable little sections of things that we were adding up. And we would just add them, like we would add up those products of force times displacement, force, and we would get one big sum that we would call work. But life doesn't usually work like that. Usually the force changes continuously throughout a continuous range of displacement options. So whenever we want to add products, whenever we have a big continuous sum of products, that's what's called an integral. That's all that an integral is a continuous sum. It's like a sum taken to the limit of infinitesimal small step sizes. So now what I'm saying to everybody, including Antonio, including multiple choice, I'm saying, if you want a general definition of work in general, and in a way, this is all mechanics review, I kind of have to press on in a second, but if you want to think about what work really is in its definition root, or if you want to think, if you've always felt until this moment, I never really understood what integrals were, like aren't integrals just backwards derivatives? No. The way to take an integral often is to do a backwards derivative, but that's not what it is. That's often how to solve it. That's the fundamental theorem of calculus. That's fascinating. What an integral is a continuous sum of products. And if I could possibly grab any of you to get that now for the first, don't be ashamed if it's the first time, but if you can get that right now, that'll still serve you well for the rest of your life. An integral is a continuous sum of products. And if you want an example to hold in your mind concretely to kind of make sense out of what that means, work is the classic, most fundamental, simplest example of an integral that there is. It's the continuous sum of lots of force displacement products. Force times displacement plus force times displacement plus force times displacement, all added up. That's what an integral is. That's what work is. And we have to use the integral sign because we're adding up a bunch of infinitesimally chopped up pieces. Okay. So what I'm saying right now is, in general, work is the integral of force times displacement. That's in general. That has nothing to do with closed yet. Now, technically, this is about to be the answer. definite and indefinite integrals. Like the difference between a definite integral and indefinite integral is with an indefinite integral, you don't necessarily know the boundaries. And with a definite integral, you have boundaries, like it's like the integral from a to b or 1 to 2 or whatever. So if it's indefinite, you don't know the boundaries. And if it's definite, you know the boundaries. But either way, all the integrals that you've ever seen in math class before are, whether they're definite or indefinite, they're what I would call open. They go from some boundary to some other boundary. Like you integrate from point A to point B, or in the case of work, like you would integrate from meter number 1 through meter number 7 if the work was being done over that 6 meter interval. Like you integrate from some position in space to another position in space. You ask how far the thing was displaced, whatever object, and you ask how hard was it being forced while it was being displaced. You dot product the two vectors together and you get an integral. Those are open integrals. I'm saying work is defined as an integral. Work is the integral of force times displacement, whether it's open, whatever kind of integral it is. Like work is defined to be an integral, period. But there's a such thing as a closed integral. There's a such thing as a closed integral. When you see an integral with a circle put on it, what that means is it's a definite integral, like it has known boundaries, but we don't have an A and a B or anything like that, because a circle on an integral means we start at some boundary point, we go somewhere, and we end up back at that same boundary point. That's what we mean by closed, like a closed path, like a round trip. This is a math thing, okay? But it can be most easily seen in the context of work or, oh, we're about to be interrupted. It can be most, okay. I'm saying, and this will be hopefully more and more clear, and I know we have 20 minutes, but I'm saying.
Daddy.
Hi, I love you. You want to say hello?
Hi, nerd.
I meant to. Thanks. That's very nice. Okay, quick as a one. Okay, very nice.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi, bye.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, very nice. Okay, that was okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. I was about to take a bath. That's totally lost. Yes. Okay. Work is defined to be the integral of force times displacement over any kind of path. Like it's a path integral, you could say. It doesn't, whatever the path is, however the displacement is, if you exert a force through that displacement and you dot product the two together and you add it all up, you now have work. What I'm now saying though is we could look at the work done over a closed path integral. Like we could look at Okay, we're almost getting to somewhere. What I'm saying now is we can look, work is the path integral of force. Work is the integral of the dot product of force with respect to displacement. In general, work can be calculated for any kind of path, whether the path is open or closed. Work can be calculated by any kind of integral, whether the integral is open or closed. We can specify, however, we can look at in other words, it's like a subset of work. We can look at, oh, I keep doing this, sorry. We can look at the work that might be done by some force over a round trip, over a closed path, i.e. there and back, right? This is like oscillation, all that stuff. Like you could sort of maybe see why this is all going to become relevant, right? We can ask ourselves the question, how much work does some force do as some object goes there and back, or there and back? And we call that a round trip. It's not usually actually round. It's usually one-dimensional, but it's round in the sense that we can ask ourselves what happens if we pick some boundary, if we start some motion here, let the motion occur for a while, and then let the motion come back to here. We can ask how much work does a force do under those circumstances? And here's, okay, and that would be called the work done over a round trip. That would be called the closed path integral of force. Now, so in other words, work could be any kind of integral of force, but we can talk about the closed path integral of force as a specific set of questions. And what we find is that some forces will do non-zero work over a closed path and others will not. Like, to be as sort of quick as I can, and again, I'm watching, we've got 25 minutes. If I look at the work done by if we look at the work done by friction, for example, or the normal force or the tension force, some kind of contact force, if we look at the work done by friction over a closed path, we will find that the total work done by friction over a closed path will necessarily not be zero. It'll be some number, I don't know, different in different circumstances, but that number won't be zero. What I mean by specifically, if we remember now that force is a vector, displacement is a vector, and direction matters, and positive and negative signs matter and all that. If I take my coffee cup that you can't see, okay, and I push it across the table that you can't see, but if I push my coffee, you totally cannot. If I push the coffee cup across the table, right? Say I push it that way, and I'm pushing it with my hand, but let's ask what the friction is doing to the coffee cup while the coffee cup goes that way. While the coffee cup displaces to the east, say 3 meters, friction is pushing it to the west, for example, right? With like 3 newtons of force or whatever. So we've got like a positive displacement, let's say to the east. We've got negative force because it's friction, it's holding it back, it's sucking energy out of it, slowing it down, right? So we've got positive displacement, negative force. We multiply the two, and they're anti-parallel to each other. So it's almost like you do the number times the cosine of the angle between them. The angle between them is like 180 degrees because they're going in opposite directions. So the cosine of 180 degrees or pi radians is -1, right? So you get this negative, and it totally makes sense because the force is going in one direction, the displacement is going in another. Multiply the two, they're in opposite directions. You get negative work, right? So energy sucked out of the system, right? And that's what's happening when the cup is going to the east. But now watch. I mean, think about this carefully. Then if I turn around and bring the cup back and start going to the west to complete a round trip. Now, on the way back, the displacement has flipped sign, like the displacement was going to the east, call that positive. Now the displacement's going negative to the west. But friction had better flip as well. Friction's still going in the opposite direction of displacement. I mean, if it is friction, friction is still slowing it down, taking energy out of it, right? So in other words, this way it was like positive displacement, negative force. This way it's going to be like negative displacement, positive force, right? Still negative work. Again, I would expect that the cup is going to be slowing, that friction is going to be taking energy out of the cup either way, right? So say friction does like negative 15 joules of work on the cup when it goes that way. I'm just making up numbers, but say it's negative 15 joules that way. Then if I go back the same displacement with all the same factors, it's going to be negative 15 again. The total net work that friction will do on the cup for this round trip will not compensate for itself. It'll be this huge negative number, this huge loss, this huge energy decrease, right? Friction will do non-conservative work, meaning along the whole round trip, meaning out, friction takes away, and back, friction continues to take away. There's a huge net takeaway from friction. That whole time, if it makes it easier for you to picture, you might say that my hand, the normal force for my hand, which is another contact force, my hand is doing the same kind of phenomenon, only with positive signs rather than negative signs. Like my hand is providing net energy that way, but then because it's pushing in a certain direction and the thing is displacing in that same direction, it's like, right. There's no positive direction for friction. I mean, there is a positive, I mean, call the east the positive direction and call the west, I'm looking at the direct chat. I think I understand that question. And I think the answer is for friction, it's like a negative times a positive and then a positive times a negative. But with, say, the normal force or tension, it's like a positive times a positive and then a negative times a negative, right? There's total agreement of the force and the displacement in one direction, and there's still total agreement in the other direction. So like my hand is always doing positive. Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Okay. So that's like contact forces are non-conservative because they can literally take away throughout a round trip without any compensation, or they can give throughout a round trip without any compensation. So we can calculate the work done over a closed path. And if we do it with something like friction, the work done, so I'm doing now this closed path integral. The closed path integral of a non-conservative force could be non-zero. But what it means to be a conservative force, now let me just, right, okay, cool. Now, but what I'm saying is going back a couple pages is the very definition of a conservative force. I think I started. What a conservative force is, F sub C, any force that we call conservative, like gravity or like a spring, always gives back what it takes. It will do a total amount of nothing along a round trip. That is to say, if I throw something up, on its way up, it's displacing up while gravity's pulling down. So on the way up, gravity is doing negative work, slowing the thing down. Then the thing starts coming back down, completing its round trip. Now on the way back down, it's displacing down, but gravity is still pulling down. So on the way back down, it's a negative times a negative. Gravity is succeeding in what it's doing. The force and the displacement are aligned with each other. They're in agreement. So on the way back, on the way up, gravity was doing negative work, slowing the object down, removing kinetic energy. On the way back down, gravity doesn't flip the way friction flips. Gravity is always pulling you down, unlike friction. So gravity is a conservative force. It'll do negative work on the way out, but do the equal amount of positive work on the way back. So for a round trip, gravity always does zero work. Same thing with a spring. I'm saying from here on in mathematically then, the definition of a conservative force is one which does zero work over a round trip. And you all always kind of knew that in English anyway. I mean, that's why we talk about potential energy for conservative forces like gravities and springs. We say they store energy. We're just making a prediction of what's going to happen on the back leg of a round trip. But we never talk about potential energy when it comes to friction or normal, because they don't. Friction and normal don't store energy because they don't do zero work for a round trip, because the closed path integral of non-conservative forces is not zero. So if we have anything right now, I'm sort of introducing two concepts. If we have anything at all, what I'm saying, number one, is there's a such thing as a closed integral. It can be applied to any concept where integrals are applied, but I'm saying explicitly now, there's something called a closed integral, which is a definite integral that starts at some boundary and then comes back to that boundary. It's a definite integral. It is a continuous sum within defined parameters. But the catch of a closed integral is that the starting parameter and the ending parameter are one and the same. Okay, I'm saying that's a math concept that we want in our minds now for the next 15 minutes and then tomorrow. Do I want to write this down? Well, yeah, so in sum so far, mathematically, we have yeah, I will write this down. Actually,
What does that say, Professor, after sum?
yeah, you're right. It says thus. I'm sorry, it's supposed to say thus far, but even I was actually about to ask for you because I knew that was, sorry, in sum thus far is what I'm trying to, sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so far mathematically, we have a dot product, which is like a way of multiplying two vectors that measures how parallel they are. And by the way, the dot product of two vectors is a scalar, like it's just a number. And the bigger the number is, the more parallel the two vectors are. So the dot product of force and displacement is known as work, and work is a scalar. It's not a vector, right? Like work is transfer of energy. Energy doesn't have left or right or east or north or anything. Energy is an amount of energy. You can lose energy or gain energy, so work can be positive or negative, but it's not a vector in any, just like temperature can go up and down, but work is a scalar quantity, just like temperature is a scalar quantity. It is the scalar product of two vectors. So that's summary of one point. Another point is a closed integral is an integral that's definite, like it has boundaries, but the starting and ending boundary are one and the same. A definite integral starts at a certain place and ends at that same place. That's what we have so far. And then we're saying, and we put those concepts together and we say that our definition of a conservative force, well, here. So now I'm saying from now on, I guess we have three things. Again, this is kind of is to respond to like what Antonio said before and to multiple choice thing, just to be as clear as I can now. So I'm saying, I'm telling us what dot product is. I'm telling us what a certain kind of integral is called a closed integral. I'm reminding us, so maybe it's like really 4 points. I'm reminding us that in physics, the definition of work is the integral of the dot product of force with displacement. Like I'm saying that in principle, we all knew that from physics 1 and calc 1, but who are we kidding? I'm saying that work itself is the integral of the dot product of any force with any displacement. So this could be an indefinite integral, definite integral, any kind of integral. But if you want to know whether some force is in fact a conservative force, then do that integral in the closed way. Take the closed path integral of that force with displacement, sorry. And if the closed path integral returns 0 every time, then that force you're looking at is conservative. Like that's how I'm trying to put these three concepts together. So I'm sort of defining dot product, I'm defining closed integrals, and I'm reminding us we're defining what conservative means in general for forces in physics. And we have to, that technically that's background, or that's like review, or trying to like bring the beginning of this course back to like where we are right now, sort of. I don't know, it's just trying to put things together. But now I want to relate all this to electricity and to like into information, into like weird fields and waves and stuff. So how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? I'm going to take a breath.
Can you go back 1
Oh,
second?
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Absolutely. Sorry.
I'm done. You can move on. Thank you, Professor.
No, all good, all good. I'm not changing this, I'm just moving it over to make it more legible. Okay, now I'm gonna shift your attention to something you've been dealing with, but you wouldn't necessarily know. Now, I'm talking about all this integral of force through displacement, closed path integral of force through displacement, like conservative force, like what does all this have to do with anything, especially what you've been doing now in the class? Well, in the lab, like I started talking about, we went from gravitational forces, which are conservative, to electrostatic forces, which I might add are also conservative. And then we started talking about fields. And then in the lab, all of a sudden you were playing with circuits. Like clearly there was some connection between lab and lecture. I mean, they were both about electricity somehow, but it certainly felt, I'm sure, like two totally different undertakings. I mean, in lab, you got these wires and these batteries and these light bulbs. I mean, and I know it was all simulation, which makes things more difficult. And I'm impressed with what you guys were doing in that board meeting, by the way. But you know, you're playing in your minds with wires and batteries and light bulbs and this and that. And then in lecture, I'm kind of yammering about like a proton and an electron pulling each other. What does all this have to do with itself? Well, first of all, let me tell you that the actual definition of voltage, okay, what voltage is, what potential difference, the true right physics word for voltage is potential difference. When we say that a battery has 9 volts, is a 9-volt battery, what we're saying is volt is a unit of measurement. It measures what's known as electrostatic potential difference. To say that the battery has 9 volts is really to say that there's 9 volts of potential difference between the positive terminal of the battery and the negative terminal of the battery. Voltage is, and voltage is just like the nickname for that. It's kind of like meters, it's kind of like if you use yards as a unit of measuring distance. So instead of saying distance, you were like a football player and talked about yardage. Like voltage, it's like saying yardage. Voltage is just the units, but what we're measuring when we use volts, we're measuring the difference between two locations, the difference between two locations in electrostatic potential energy per charge. That's a mouthful, and I know I only have 5 minutes left. But what I'm really saying is that if you can kind of understand that the integral of force through displacement is known as work, and if you understand that work is the integral of force through displacement, and if you understand that conservative forces can do work, just meaning that whenever they do work, they're doing some amount in one direction that we predict or assume or believe will be undone if we go back in the other direction, right? So with conservative forces, when conservative forces do work, we say they build up or store or accumulate potential energy, right? Let me go like this, better example. Like if I do work against the conservative force of gravity, and I lift something up, I know that gravity is doing negative work. The thing is slowing down. And when it gets here to some height, I know that gravity is a conservative force. So I know that if I let this thing go, gravity is going to start doing positive work on the way down, and it's going to give it back the exact amount of energy that was lost when I was working against gravity on the way up, right? I can't say that about friction, but I can say it about gravity. I know that whatever I lose doing work against gravity, I'm going to get back on the way back. So I can say that when I do work against a conservative force like gravity, I can say that I'm accumulating potential energy, that I'm storing potential energy. Where am I storing this potential energy? Am I storing it in a box somewhere? Am I storing it in the earth? Am I storing it in the middle point between the earth and the box? No, I'm storing it in my mind, in my memory, in my brain. I'm just saying, when we say that gravity stores potential energy, we're just saying that we trust gravity well enough to be conservative, that we know anything that's being lost now on this route will be gained back on the back route. So when we do the integral of some force through displacement, we say that potential energy is being accumulated. When we look at the field, the electric field through some displacement, we say that potential is being accumulated. Put another way, and I know this is like the last thing I'm going to, here, I'll make this bigger. Sorry. This is the last thing I'm going to draw today. I'm going to pause. We'll stop with this. Ah. Okay, say this.
What? Where's your chart at?
This is the last thing I'm going to say. So we have 1 minute.
I'm soon about to use it. Find your charger and the head is right there in the dining room. What?
Juanita, we can hear you in your conversation.
Oh, sorry. Let me mute myself.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna have you copy this down. This is what we're gonna end today. Tomorrow we're gonna put it all together. Just bear with me, but I'm gonna have you copy. Yes. Wait. Yes. Answer to the direct question. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to say right now, I know it's time. Please do copy this down. I'm going to try to obviously what I'm trying to do in these last 2 days is tie together all the material, but I'm also trying to step it up a bit. And tomorrow I'm just, again, if you have any issues about your grades or anything, please contact me privately. Tomorrow, I'm just going to hit the ground running with just the physics for 2.5 hours. I'm going to put all this physics together and I'm going to try to kind of address everything that's on that multiple choice thing as it stands now. I may distribute more questions tonight of it. But anyway, what I'm saying right now is if you can kind of follow that when conservative force does work, it accumulates potential energy. When a conservative force does work from here to there, we see a potential energy difference between here and there. When a conservative field does work from here to there, we see a difference in voltage between here and there. It's a strict parallel, and it's not a coincidence because force is to field as potential energy is to potential. Force is an interaction between two objects. Force is something a proton does to an electron. Field is a property of one object or an interaction between an object and space itself. The proton pushes the electron, we say that's called a force, whereas the proton makes a field in space and the field pushes the electron. Similarly, and this is the last thing I'm saying, I know it's 3:56. Similarly, if you try to separate the proton from the proton accumulates more and more potential energy as it gets farther away from the electron. If if you just look at the two locations in space, if you just look at how far away these two spots are, how much work it would take to get a proton from this point in space to that one, we would say there's a great amount of voltage difference between the 2 points in space. Force is one object to another, field is one object, potential energy is one object to another, potential is one object. I'm just going to leave it at that. I know that's actually kind of answer. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I will tighten this all up tomorrow and finish tomorrow. I will try to distribute more of the questions tonight that you should be looking at for this final, but yes, they'll all be multiple choice. Yeah, like what I'm saying. Wait. No, yeah, I will probably make more questions, and I don't know if I'll edit. I'm going to just edit that form and repost it, but I don't know how that will look in Google Classroom. But no, yeah, I'm going to add more questions to that and probably post them. I think it'll still be one in the same form. I'm not actually sure. Wait. Oh, but wait, let me make it. Don't do that thing is practice. The actual final will be posted Wednesday, sometime between 4 and 7. I'm just giving you a heads up what it's looking like in advance so you can practice or talk to each other or how to take notes on the class. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so don't do that. And in fact, I don't think you could do that thing if you tried. I think it's in material, not in assignments, so to speak. So the actual one will be posted Wednesday night. It's going to look, that's just a foreshadow of what it will look like. Okay. So thank you all. You've been very, very patient. We've got one more class. We're going to learn a lot. I love you all. Cork bless America. And goodbye. Thank you. Yes, see you tomorrow. Awesome.
Thank you, Professor. See you tomorrow and have a
Thank you. You too. Thank you. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Jean-Pierre, hang on for a second. Yes. Thank you, guys. But yeah, Jean-Pierre, hang on for a second. Oh, and I'm going to turn off the recording too. I always forget to do that. Hang on.